If there's one thing that most people would consider a firm fact about Thanos, it's that he's completely evil through and through. After all, this is the entire basis of his role in the MCU, and also much of his time in comics, where he generally exists as the biggest evil in whatever series that includes him. Bizarrely though, Thanos being one of Marvel's most intimidating bad guys hasn't stopped him from doing some downright heroic things. It makes an uncomfortable kind of sense, as while Thanos wants to kill whoever he sets his targets on, he also doesn't want the world to end, meaning that many superheroes actively recruit Thanos to do good when they need a real powerhouse to fight another universe-threatening evil. Between saving the world, saving the universe, and helping his worst enemies, sometimes it seems Thanos exists solely to remind us that even evil has standards. So with that in mind, I'm Will for What Culture, and here are the 10 most heroic things that Thanos has ever done. Number 10. Murdering his evil future self. Thanos wins. Murder in and of itself isn't all that much of a heroic action, but under the right circumstances it can be, as is the case with Thanos killing his future self in the Donny Cates Thanos Wins series. Though the pair of purple people killers do team up at the start of the series, the young Thanos quickly sours on his older counterpart, as he realizes the old man is obsessed with murder not to assert his own power, but out of worry that he'll never properly see death again. He's living in fear due to his profound desire to die and be reunited with her. Realizing that his future self kills countless people not in a bid to change the world, but rather out of weakness, Thanos steals the Time Stone and tells his doppelganger that he won't kill him and he won't do any of the things that got him there, which means he effectively saves the lives of half of the Marvel Universe by refusing to walk in his old footsteps. While it might not sound profoundly heroic, the fact that Thanos saw a universe where he got basically everything he'd ever wanted and actively rejected it because he felt it was dishonorable is a surprisingly moral move. Number 9. Fighting Nebula, the Infinity Gauntlet. Fighting Nebula is sort of the biggest catch-22 in Thanos' heroic repertoire. On one hand, it's undeniable that he was willing to do absolutely awful things in the name of his form of justice. There's no way around that. But it's also worth saying that Thanos is integral to making sure that the person who steals the Infinity Gauntlet from him, Nebula, doesn't get to destroy the world either. After a little well-intentioned needling from Adam Warlock, Thanos agrees to join their heroic efforts to save the day, largely because he recognizes the situation they need to save is in no small part his fault. Interestingly, this portion of the comic also suggests that Thanos subconsciously let Nebula take the gauntlet because he feared the ramifications of his actions, which, while not totally heroic, does also suggest that beneath his big purple jowls lies a better person than you might initially expect. Number 8. Saving and training Gamora. Various comics. Thanos saving Gamora and taking her in as his apprentice is, in theory, a pretty heroic move, if you take the fact that he murdered her entire species at the same time out of the equation. That said, Thanos talks an awful big game about not saving Gamora out of mercy, but it's frankly hard to see him rescuing her as anything but. After all, the one consistent thing we see in all versions of this story is that Thanos sees the child try to defend herself, feels a mixture of respect and sympathy for her drive, and decides to take her in, which is some kind of mercy, whichever way you look at it. Although he's not winning Dad of the Year anytime soon, Thanos did provide Gamora with the means to not only live, but also protect herself in an often cruel and unforgiving universe, and that by itself is a heroic move. It's just one that's also balanced out by a whole lot of evil. Number 7. Being a superhero. Thanos Volume 2, 10. Few fans weren't surprised when they opened the pages of Thanos 10 only to be greeted by the villain working happily as the leader of the Avengers. While it happens in a fake universe crafted by Witches of Infinity to try and win Thanos over, the comic almost purposefully ignores one really important thing. Thanos seems super stoked to be an Avenger. We watch him enjoy his role working alongside them, building friendships with them, and even seemingly getting a kick out of saving the day. Hell, Thanos goes so far as to say that he's just glad nobody got hurt after the Avengers fight a villain, which all builds to a pretty strong implication that, as much as Thanos is a dyed-in-the-wool villain, he would also genuinely be a great superhero. Number 6. Save the world from ANNHILUS, the Infinity Relativity, and the Infinity Finale. One of the weirdest things about Thanos is that, as many times as he's tried to take over the universe and annihilate countless scores of people, he's also been crucial in saving the world about as many times as he's responsible for trying to end it. Of all these times, perhaps the most dramatic is when Thanos teams up with pretty much every Marvel hero in existence in order to try and save the universe from ANNIHILUS, one of the handful of villains who's actually more evil than Thanos himself. While you could say that the Mad Titan is solely motivated by revenge, after a proper read of his arc throughout the storyline, the whole thing seems a little deeper than that. Though it's clear that Thanos also wants to teach ANNIHILUS not to cross him, he's also surprisingly worried about the fate of his world and those around him. He also shows that he respects the likes of those such as Thor for their battle prowess, even seeming sad when the God of Thunder dies in one of the final battles. Number 5. Fighting against the Cancerverse, the Thanos Imperative. For anyone not well versed in the questionably named Cancerverse, the simplest explanation is that it is a universe wherein death itself has been eradicated, leading to a series of terrifying dark gods, twisting everything in the universe to be pure, undiluted nightmare fuel. As the longtime suitor of death in the main Marvel universe, Thanos is understandably pretty enraged when he sees this universe, and the threat it is beginning to impose on his own. This in mind, he sets a trap for the Cancerverse's leader, a corrupted Captain Marvel that brings death into this universe, who promptly murders the former hero in cold blood. This all required Thanos to risk his own life, which is undeniably a heroic move, even if Thanos generally craving his own demise makes it slightly less impressive. Number 4. Saving death with Deadpool. Deadpool vs. Thanos. Deadpool vs. Thanos is one of the most surreal comics to ever contain the Mad Titan, as it features Thanos teaming up with the Merc with a Mouth in order to save their mutual love interest Death from a bizarre kidnapping that takes her outside of the universe itself. Thanos not only saves Death from this fate, but also saves Deadpool's life from the Abyss Man, which is weirdly an even more heroic move, as he's saving his direct competitor for Death's affection, seemingly just because he grew to respect the strange assassin. Thanos does balance this all out by trying to end the universe yet again at the end of the series in order to try and win over the affections of Death. But in the grand scheme of things, without his help, Deadpool couldn't have saved the universe in the first place. Number 3. Defended Asgard from Thor. Thor, Blood and Thunder. Thor, Blood and Thunder sets up perhaps one of the wildest scenarios Marvel has ever made, as it follows a story that sees Thor lose his mind to rage and try to destroy Asgard itself. In a pretty massive twist, it's the villainous Thanos that ends up saving the day, putting Thor in stasis and then taking him to see his father Odin, which works to cool the Norse god's anger. Perhaps the most surreal part of this whole thing is that Thanos is given pretty much endless opportunities to try and kill Thor, yet he resists every time, showing that, for all his evil deeds, he's not as murder-happy as most of his worst moments make him out to be. Number 2. Guarding the Reality Gem. Various comics. Given that most people's knowledge of Thanos consists of knowing he's done some very bad things with the Infinity Gems, both in the film and comic universe, it may come as a fairly huge surprise to learn that the Mad Titan was actually entrusted with the Reality Gem for safekeeping. And it does make sense, as Thanos is one of the very few characters in the Marvel Universe who outright refuses to use the gem by itself. As he states, the gem is too precarious to use alone, as it could easily threaten the safety of reality itself. And while Thanos isn't exactly a hero, he doesn't want to see his universe totally shattered, meaning he's willing to protect it from literally everyone. And he does a pretty damn good job. Number 1. Giving Captain Marvel a noble death. The death of Captain Marvel. The death of Captain Marvel is, put most simply, over 100 pages of straight-up emotional devastation, culminating in one of the most surreal experiences ever, as we see Thanos, Mar-Vel's biggest rival, come to the man's deathbed to help him out. While Thanos doesn't save Mar-Vel, he does bring him 2 surprisingly emotional gifts, the first being one last glorious battle, and the second being bringing Marvel to death, showing the hero that she isn't someone to fear. It's clear that Thanos' goal in the series is to help his enemy as best he could, and to honour him the whole time, and frankly you can't see all that and not consider it one of the Mad Titan's most heroic and well-intentioned gestures. And there you have it folks, the 10 most heroic things that Thanos has ever done. And Thanos has done a lot in his time, so if you know of any other times Thanos has performed heroic acts, definitely leave them down in the comments below. Also, feel free to drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, and drop me a follow on Twitter at @uslydogU. You can also subscribe to What Culture Comics, and swing on by whatculture.com for daily news, lists, articles and quizzes, and all that other funky internet stuff. I'm Will for What Culture, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.